So what we're going to be working on is exactly this. You want to buy something, the lender's telling you, I got you on some of it, right? I got you on some of it. I don't got you on the whole amount. If you're borrowing $1 million and they say, I'm going to give you 80% of that million. Well, if you know $1 million is $1 million, what's 80% of $1 million? That's easy math. That's 800,000. So that means you have to come with a down payment of 20,000. I mean 200,000, right? It's $1 million loan. The lender saying I'm only giving you 80% of that. 80% of that is 800,000. How much do I have to bring to the table? 200,000. So that's what a down payment is. And when you're working with your clients, let's tie this into when you're working with your clients. You're working with a buyer. The buyer has a pre-approval. When you meet them, you're going to ask them, "Hey, where's your pre-approval? Why do you need a pre-approval? You need a pre-approval to know how much that person's qualified to purchase a home for." So, say for instance, that person's pre-approval is 300,000. The next thing you're going to look for, well, what is your down payment? What percentage do you have to bring to the table, right? And then you'll read through the little loan document and say, we're going to give this person a 90% a loan to value, right? That means the value of what you're buying, we're giving you 90% of that. So if what you're buying is 100,000, the lender's telling you that they're going to give you 90,000 of that 100,000, and you have to fill the gap or make a down payment of 10% or $10,000. It's just that simple. They want you to have 10% skin in the game. Now, there's some rules when you're dealing with the different types of loan types, like FHA, there's a 3.5% requirement. So in that instance, if you had a $100,000 loan, FHA requires a 3.5% down payment. That's why FHA is so attractive, because you only got to have 3.5% down payment. When you're so say for instance, you met that same person, they had a $300,000 loan, it was FHA. So you know they got to come to the table with 3.5%. I mean, I'm sorry, the purchase price is 300,000. You know they got to come with 3.5% of 300,000. All right. And that's what down payment is. It's a very, very, very simple thing to understand. And they're gonna test y'all on that on there because they want to make sure that when you meet that client, you know how to work the numbers, you know how to crunch those numbers. All right. So hold on one second. All right. So let's look at some questions. And actually, I had one up from the test. It was one that was already up from the test that I saw. We were right on it. Right here. All right. A buyer is purchasing a property for $300,000 and is making a 20% down payment. How much will the buyer need to finance? Now, they're not asking for the down payment in this question. They're asking how much is the lender going to loan? All right. So what we do is we still need to figure out what that is. So here's the step. Let me take this to the whiteboard real quick and show y'all. I'm gonna go down here on this one here. So this is the question. And this is how I would unpack the question. And this is how we should do every question when we're testing. So anytime we're talking about math, especially on Saturdays, break out y'all like a sheet of paper or just go back here and watch this video and just, see what I'm doing and then maybe go back and watch the video. But we're looking for the down payment or we're looking for the loan amount in this one, right? So it's two things that they're going to try to test you on, the down payment and the loan amount. And with this, when you do the math is pretty much the same in down payment, right? And I urge y'all to just go back and look at this video or just try to figure out how to do just this problem. Because if you can figure out how to do just this problem, then we're going to see the same setup in other problems, and we already going to know how to figure this out, right? So these are the two things that they're going to test us on with this type of question. Well, this one, they want to know what the loan amount, and this is another way of them saying, what's the loan amount? How much will the buyer need to finance? Or how much is the loan amount? Same question. All right, so we just do our math. We need to figure out what 20%, we need to figure out what 20% of this number is so we can subtract it and figure out the loan amount. So the way we do that is we say, okay, the property sales price is 300,000. And then the down payment, I'm sorry, my keyboard is sticking, y'all, is 20%. So all we're gonna do now, we got an equation for that. Let's find that equation. Here, give me 1 second. We're gonna find that equation. That's gonna be, let's see here. Right here. Right. So let me share this with y'all. Right here. This is the one we need. Loan equals LTV times price. So let's copy that. That's the equation that we need. I'm moving fast, but the reason why I know, like, we're gonna go over this a lot, but I want y'all, these are the, now, on loan to value ratios, it's only 3 things that they gonna be able to ask y'all. One of them is multiplying, and 2 of them is division, the same as the other one with the interest. They just calling them something different. The variables are just called something different. You're doing the same stuff, right? You're doing the same stuff, the same formula, it's just different words, right? So they're asking, in our question, they're asking for the loan amount, right? So we go back here and we type in our equation down here. It says the loan equals the LTV ratio times the price. So what's the LTV ratio? That's the 20% or loan to value ratio, right? So we're gonna type in 20%. Now, some people would say just go ahead and type in 80% there, and you'll get straight to the answer. But I'm gonna just show you how to do it this way, and then we're gonna pick it up on that, because ordinarily we would just say, okay, the down payment 20%, so then that means the loan amount is 80%, right? If I got a 20% down payment, then the loan amount is 80%, right? So, but I'm gonna do it this way, and I'm gonna just show you another way that we could get to it. We could get to it this way and the other way. The other way is just a little bit easier, but I'm gonna show you how to do it this way. So 20% times the price, right? 300,000. Well, 20%, let's go to the calculator, see what that is. And that's, we say 20% times 300,000 equals 60,000. So we know that that's our down payment, right? So let's go back to our sheet. And so we know that that equals 60,000, right? So now we know, but we know that that's the down payment. So if it's $60,000 down payment, all we got to do is take the 300,000 and subtract the down payment, and that's the loan amount. And the loan amount equals 240,000. All right. Now we could have did this here. We could have put the 80% there, because we knew up here in the question it says 20%. So that means the loan is 80%. So we could have put 80% here and just got straight to the question, is what I was showing you. So if we stop our, hold on, I think I still was on the calculator. Hold on. So if we go, what I mean by that is if we go 80% times 300,000, we can get straight to the answer. But I don't want to do that yet, because it's another step in there. So 240,000 would have been the answer right there. Right there. So let me go back to the question and show y'all the question up here, right? And remember, we love math because the question is going to be right there. So it says 300, a buyer's purchasing a property of 300,000, making a 20% down payment. how much would the buyer need to finance? The good thing about that this question is the 60,000 is not on there. So if you'd have made a mistake and did the math and came up with 60,000, you'd have been looking for 60,000 here and knew that that wasn't the answer because it's not on here. But the answer to this question is this one here. Let's see how they break it down. Right, that's the answer to this question. All right. So the way they break it down and they go in steps. Understand what the down payment is. A down payment is an initial payment made when something is bought on credit. In the context of buying a property, it is the percentage of the property's total cost that the buyer pays up front, reducing the amount they need to borrow. Step 2, calculate the down payment amount. The buyer is making a 20% down payment on a property that costs $300,000. To find out the down payment amount, we multiply the total cost of the property by the down payment percentage. So they did it the way that I did it. 300,000 times 20% equals 300,000 times 0.20, but we did it on the calculator so you don't see all this stuff, equals 60,000. Calculate the amount to be financed. To find out how much the buyer needs to finance, subtract the down payment from the total cost, which is what we did. 300,000 minus 60 equals 240. Therefore, the buyer will need to finance $240,000. And now, if you can get the interest, and I'm not talking about figuring out problems, but if you understand how to figure out interest and you understand how to do this, you're about 40 to 50% able to understand the stuff and the methodologies that you have to employ on the test to get the answers right. You're at about 50% if you understand just these two things that I just went over. If you, in other words, let me just say it this way. If you understand all of these three formulas and the other three formulas, that's about 50% of what you need to be able to answer these questions, maybe more. Because it's going to be, you're going to be doing one of these three things in almost every question that they ask you, no matter what it is, honestly. All right. Hold on one second. All right. So that's this. That's how, oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not the one I wanted to be on. This is the one I wanted to be on. So LTV, loan to value ratio. Now, here's the thing. In the class, we are on agency and we are on contracts, right? None of this stuff is going to come into play at agency and contracts. Where this is going to come into play is in finance and math calculations. Because when we start finance, I'm gonna give you the background. Like finance is important because finance actually covers three parts of the test, which is going to be fair housing, appraisal, and finance. And the reason why I say that is that just because a mortgage was invented, we had to have fair housing and we had to have valuations or appraisals. Because what is a mortgage? A mortgage is the collateral, but that the homeowner is giving somebody else to lend them money. So in other words, if you lend me that money, I'm gonna pledge my house as collateral for that money. That's what a mortgage is in a sense. All right. So they want to make sure that you understand when your customer, when you go out there, you're about to sell somebody a house and you say, well, what's your loan to value? And the buyer says, oh, I got a 90-10. You got to know what that means. Meaning that the loan is 90% of what the home value is, and I got to come with 10% of that. That's really what that buyer is saying to you. And so looking at the questions here, it was a bunch of loan to value questions in the beginning of this. And I'm going to pull some of them out here real quick. Like here's one. A buyer's purchasing a property for $250,000 and is making a 25% down payment. How much needs to be financed? Well, we don't even try to answer the question right now, even if we can. Well, what I want y'all to do is get exercise and working these formulas. So when we go here, we're gonna paste the question. I paste it. Again, a buyer's purchasing a property for $250,000 and is making a 25% down payment. How much will the buyer need to finance? Okay, so how much is the loan amount? That's interchangeable for what they're asking. So what we're gonna go up here and do is see, okay, this is the formula for LTV. We're not looking for LTV. This is the formula for the loan. Okay, if this is the formula for the loan, this is the one we need to use. So we're gonna copy that. Or we can remember it, right? And so, and it's not that hard because once y'all do enough of them, you're gonna know it. Like loan amount means equals the loan divided by the loan to value. I mean, loan equals loan to value divided by loan to value multiplied by 250,000. Here, we're gonna see the equation. I don't know why I didn't just put it there. So in other words, we're gonna plug these numbers into this equation. Loan to value ratio, 25%. The price, 250,000. The buyer's purchasing a property for 250,000. That's the price of the house. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna put 250,000 there, and we're gonna break out our calculator because we filled in all the things that we need to know. And we're gonna break out our calculator. And it's simple math at this point. 25% times 250,000. Right? $62,500. We're gonna go back to our sheet. We're gonna plug that in. That equals $62,500. That's the down payment though. Right? So we need to take 250 now and subtract 62.5. And what does that equal? So we go back to our calculator, clear it, and take 250 minus 62.5. So our answer is 187,500. We go back to our sheet. 187,500 is the loan amount. So now we got our down payment and our loan amount. Or now when we get more savvier in doing these problems, we okay, 25% down payment. I ain't about to do this extra step of subtracting. I'm gonna just take and the 75% because I know that that's the loan amount. If the down payment is 25%, the loan amount 75%, I'm gonna get straight to the answer that way. But I'm gonna make sure that that's what they're asking me. But the answer to this question is 187,500. Let's go to the question on here. It's right there, just like on our calculator. That's why I've been telling y'all, like math, if you get the math, you're gonna pass the test, period. So honestly, if I'm studying this test, I'm doing nothing but math, and I'm mainly doing and knowing the definitions. Because if I can master the definitions and I can master the math, any question is open for me to be able to interpret if I can eliminate. All right. So I'm going 187. That's the answer. 90% of the people got that one right. And here's the formula. Step one, calculate the down payment. The same process that we did before. All right. To find the down payment, we need to multiply the purchase price by the down payment. Down payment equals purchase price times a down payment's percentage. In this instance, it was 250,000 times 25%. We did that. We get to the 62,500. Next, calculate the amount to be financed. To find the amount the buyer needs to finance, we subtract the down payment from the purchase price. Amount to be financed, purchase price minus the down payment, or 250,000 minus 62,500, it equals to 187.5. Therefore, the buyer will need $187,500 as the loan amount. And they better have 62,500 in the bank. Now, what will happen in this instance is you will also have to make sure that your buyer has $62,500 in the bank for the down payment. Okay? Because you don't want to find them a house and then they don't have that available for the down payment, because if they don't, they're gonna need some help coming up with this money, and you might have to help them find that money. But that's that's down the road. We just need to make sure we understand just this relationship. I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna ask y'all some questions. All right, this is what I'm saying too. Let's just look at this question. If a retail store has a base rent of $2,000 per month and a percentage lease of 5% of monthly sales over $40,000, and the store sales is $50,000, what's the total amount of rent due? All right. So it's the same math though. What I'm saying. All right. They got to pay $2,000 plus 5% over anything that they make of $40,000. What they're asking us is, do we know what 5%? First off, we got to subtract the 50,000 from the 40,000. We come up with 10,000 because the question said the monthly percentage. Hold on, let's read this again. Hold on, let me just do here. Let's just do this one real quick because it's the same math. It's the same math. It don't look like it, but it's the same math. So how we do this, and if we unpack it, here's the question. I'm gonna move it down, and it's just a random question, but it's the same math. So it says a retail store has a base rent of 200,000 per month. So we're gonna do base rent 2,000. I said 200, 2,000 per month. And then so this is almost how I can do this. Okay, boom. We accounted for that part of the question. And a percentage lease of 5% of monthly sales over 40,000. All right. So 5% of sales over 40,000. All right. So we got that. And then it says, and the store sales for the month is 50,000. Sales for the month, 50,000. What's the total rent due? Okay, well, we know we already got 2,000 because we see that, right? So we know we already got 2,000 because that's the base rent. We're gonna call this base rent. All right. And then it says 5% of sales over 40,000. Well, they made $50,000 this month. So we got to subtract the 40 from the 50. So we just go here, we take the 50,000 minus the 40,000. That equals 10,000. All right. So now we need to know what 5% of 10,000 is. Guess what? We know how to do that already. What do? We go to our calculator, take the 10,000 times 5%. That equals $500, right? 5% of 10,000, that's an additional $500. So let's go back to our sheet. We're going to say that equals, and then our next equation was 5% times 10,000 equals $500. So now we take our base rent plus the 5% of the 10,000, that equals $2,500 in their rent. But only thing we did in that question was subtract and multiply to get to 2,500. So that we go back to our question right here. 2,500 is right there on our screen. We're gonna pick it because it was on our calculator, and that's right. But that questions, they get you with the question with all this dumb stuff in there, all these words and stuff. And what we do is we unpack the question by writing out the question. And literally, once I get the part written down, I just delete it. You can't do that on a test, but when you're practicing, you can do that. And so here's the math that it looks like here. Step 1, calculate the amount of sales over the threshold. That wasn't my step 1, but that's their step 1. So they said the threshold in this case is 40,000. The store's monthly sales is 50,000. To find the amount. And here's the thing: if you know how to get to the answer your way, and you know how to get to the answer this way, that's good. You got 2 ways that you can solve the problem. So it says the store sale for the month is $50,000. To find the amount over the threshold, we subtract the threshold from the total amount of sales. In other words, there's a lot of unnecessary wording there to me. So we take 50,000 minus the 40,000, we get 10,000. So the sales over the threshold is 10,000. Step 2, calculate the additional rent. Calculate the additional rent due to the percentage lease. The lease agreement states that the 5% lease on the amount of monthly sales over 40,000. To find the additional rent, we calculate 5% of the 10,000 over the threshold. In other words, what we did, 5% of 10,000 equals 0.05 times 10,000 or $500. So the additional amount of rent due from the percentage lease is 500,000. To calculate the rent due, the base rent is $22,000 per month. To find the total rent due, we add the base rent to the additional rent from the percentage lease. 2,000 plus the 500 equals 2,500, and we get $2,500. But the next step for us to understand is what in the hell is a percentage lease? Really. And once we understand what a percentage lease is, and most of the time you're going to see percentage leases in retail, like in a mall, right? Really where you really see it is in like those kiosks. So you walking through the mall and you might have like a jury guy, and they don't really know how to, we're gonna say, okay, it's $1,000 for you to have that spot there in the middle of the mall. You go up the escalator in Beechwood, you see the guy over there selling phone cases to the left. He probably is on a percentage rent thing. He's gonna pay a base amount, and then you're gonna pay me an additional percentage of your rent, because it's hard for me to just say it's $5,000 for that spot right there, because that may be too high and you won't be able to lease that space. But if I say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna pay me $1,000 just to be there, and then you're gonna give me 5% of what your gross sales for that month on that space. At the end of the month, he's gonna produce the gross rental amount. I mean, and it's all on the trust system, and for the most part, I don't think the mall will tie into like his computer system to see how much he's really doing. It's all based on trust. They got cameras and all that stuff. But okay, so say for instance, the guy made $40,000 selling phone cases that month. He gonna give him 5% of that, so we already know the math. And so that's really where percentage leases are gonna come into play at, mostly in retail situations like malls and stuff like that. I don't really know of any other places really where they have like percentage leases. It's mostly gonna be in retail, and it's mostly gonna be in retail. You're selling something. Obviously, because it says over the sales, you're selling something, so that's going to be retail. So a percentage lease is associated with retail. All right. So, but see the math in that question. What do? We subtracted and multiplied. That's all they asked us to do. But we just got to be able to unpack the question in a way that we understand it, and really what we're doing is we're trying to unpack the question so we can divide, multiply, subtract, or add. Right. And we're trying to determine how many parts to this question it was. In this question, it was 3 things that we needed to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Most of the questions on the test for the math are going to be 3 to 4 step questions. All right. But we need to know how to do the first steps first, because all that is going to be the 4 operations: multiply, division, subtract, or adding, and then we get to our answer. Most of the test questions for the math are going to be 3 to 4 part questions, meaning that you're going to have a step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4 in most cases. All right. So what does this question say? A buyer finalizes a purchase of a home for $350,000 with a 20% down payment. We just figured out down payment. We know how to do that now. It says the closing costs are $12,000, which includes a $2,000 purchase, $2,000 for the purchase of discount points. How much does the buyer have to bring to the table? So I want to just stop there, because this is what we got to start doing with these math questions. We just on the second math question, but now what I'm trying to get y'all to see is because we know how to figure out down payment and we know how to figure out interest, the math is all the same. It's all the same. Right? So when we copy this question, we take this question over to our sheet. Now let me get rid of this. And this will be the last one I do on the math, and we just unpack it. Okay, buyer finalized a purchase for $350,000 home. So purchase price is what we're gonna do. Purchase price, $350,000. Boom, we getting rid of that in our question. That's done. We accounted for that. On a home with a 20% down payment right here, down payment, 20%. We're gonna get rid of that. We don't need it no more. The closing costs are $12,000. Closing costs. $12,000. Get rid of that. We don't need that no more. Which includes a $2,000, which includes $2,000 for the purchase of discount points. So we're going to put discount points. Now, I don't like the way they worded that part right there because it makes me seem like those discount points are in that $12,000, but we're going to see. How much does the buyer need to bring to closing? Okay. So first thing we're going to do, we need to figure out what their down payment is. We already know the math. We figuring out down payment. We know the down payment is 20% of 350,000. Guess what we about to do? We're going to go get our calculator and we're going to go here, 350,000 times 20% equals $70,000. That's our down payment. So what we do is we go back to the question. We're going to put down payment equals, what did I say? 70,000. Down payment equals 70,000. Now we can, what we're going to do is get rid of this. And y'all don't have to do this yet. You could just, I just know I don't want that on there. I'm going to just put down payment. $70,000. All right. Now it says, and actually, we don't even need this no more, but I'm gonna leave it there. So now, what does this says? It says, how much does the buyer need to bring to closing? Well, the only thing we really had to figure out for this question is the down payment. So 70,000 plus now closing costs. Now, what are closing costs? You're gonna have, as a buyer agent, the buyer's closing cost is gonna be like title work. They got to get insurance for the property. They got the title work, insurance. They might have to pay for an appraisal. All of that stuff is added up in the closing costs, right? So that came to 12,000, but we don't even really have to worry about what's included in that because they gave us the number. So that's 12,000, and then he had to pay $2,000 for discount points. So all we do, y'all, is add 70,000 plus 2,000 or 12. Let's go 12,000. Let's go straight down. 12,000 plus 2,000. What does that equal? 70,000 plus 12,000 is 82,000 plus another two. That's 84,000. So now remember, I was worried about if this 2,000 was included in this. So we're looking for either 84,000 or 82,000 when we go to look at our answers for this on PSI. So let's go over there and see. You see this? You see how they do us? 84,000, 82,000. Those are the things that you got to be. I can't pick that up when y'all at the test. Y'all got to be able to, and we got to do enough of these for us to be able to record. I already knew it when they the way they worded it, and this is how they trick us, right? Now let's look at the wording again, and I'm going to point out what they said to us. A buyer finalizes a purchase, because see, if you just went into it not really breaking down the question how they asked it, you're going to go and you're going to pick this number probably, right? But let's see. That still may be our answer, but the way they asked us, it made my antennas go up like, man, I gotta make sure when I go back to those answers, if 82,000 is on there, that might be the answer. Because watch what they do to us. A buyer is finalizing a purchase of 350,000 with a 20% down payment. The closing costs are 12,000, which includes 2,000 for purchase of discount points. That includes the 2,000. So we shouldn't have added that 2,000 when we did our math. So this part right here is what I picked up on. It said includes. This 12,000 includes 2,000. That's where they trick us at. So the answer is 82,000, not 84, because we added that 2,000. You see a lot of people got the 26 right here. These are the things that we see. If we only know the basics, we ain't going to pick up on this. And we're going to pick 84 thinking that was the right answer. Right? But we need to read the question. And if you unpack it like I did, $350,000 purchase price with a 20% down payment. We know how to figure out this part. This easy money. Closing costs are 12,000. They told us that. Now if it didn't say includes, if it says and an additional 2,000 for purchase of discount points, then we know we have to add that in there. This is the part where practice and repetition Actually, you would have had to get that wrong to understand why you got it wrong. All right, now let's look at the answer, and they're going to explain this. It says to determine the amount the buyer needs to bring to closing when purchasing a home, excuse me, we need to include the down payment and any applicable closing costs. That's why they say applicable. Step one, calculate the down payment. That's easy money. And what I want y'all to be able to do leaving here is just knowing how to calculate down payment and knowing how to work with interest. All right. It's a 20% down payment. We know how to do that math. 350 times 20%, that's 70. We wrote that down on our sheet of paper. Step two, add the closing costs. The closing costs, the amount to 12,000. Hold up 1 second. To total closing costs amount to 12,000. This figure includes fees for finalization of mortgage, such as appraisal, title insurance, and purchase of discount points. Right? That's the 12,000. To calculate the total funds required, add the down payment to the closing cost to determine the funds needed at closing. Down payment 70,000 plus the $12,000 in closing costs equals 82,000. Thus, the buyer needs to bring $82,000 to closing for this. But you got it, because what we do is we just typing out the numbers of the problem. But I picked up on that. Y'all got to be able to pick up on that, because guess what? The wrong answer is on there, right here, and 26% of the people got that wrong. Right? So this is why y'all, it's not that y'all don't know how to do the math, is that we are not able to identify the trick parts of the question. And if they're only asking us 8 or 9 questions about this, and they got tricks in 3 or 4 of them, and we haven't identified those tricks, we gonna go in there like, man, I don't understand this math. It's because we're not picking up the nuances of the question. And this is a great question to show what they'll do to you. And they put the wrong answer on there. So guess what's on our calculator? On our sheet? What was on our sheet right here? 84,000. Because I added the 2,000, but I knew that they were going to do that to us. So you don't even need the discount points, because it said which includes the discount points. That 12,000 included the discount points. So we should have just stopped right there. All right. That was a great question to show you what you got to be aware of when they're asking you the questions. Now, what I want to ask y'all is, looking at this math real quick. Let me get to just here. Looking at this math, do y'all think that math is hard at all? And y'all can answer in the feed if y'all can't answer verbally.
No.
That's easy money, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we got to understand is, like, if I like, let me get a good example. Because we selling houses. I want to find something else out. Okay, like some people go to the salon. You go to the salon and you order, just say, like my barber, if you want to get everything she does, it's called the perfect 10. Well, I don't get the perfect 10. I just get a haircut and hot towel thing, a shampoo. So a haircut might be $60 with her. The shampoo might be another $5, and the hot towel might be another $5. So what that costs me is 60 plus 5 plus 5. So I'm paying $70, right? With this, what that is what you're trying to figure out is how much somebody pays. And we do it subconsciously everywhere we go. Like if you were to go to McDonald's and order just a la carte, some fries, a sandwich, a drink, all of those are things you got to pay for, right? All we're doing is taking out in a house sale is all of the things that buyer has to pay for, all of the things that the seller has to pay for, and we're adding them up and we're calculating them and saying how much that costs for us to finalize that deal. We do it all the time. The problem is the terms in real estate we're not familiar with. So that's why I say, if we focus on learning the jargon and the definitions and what we're doing and what finance is, then we'll understand what those variables in it that they're asking about. What is a discount point? We're gonna talk about that next. This is just a video on those operations, down payment and stuff like that. Hold on, let me stop this real